So, I support Ahmaud Arbery. I believe that he is the victim of a hate crime and a lynching. And especially since it has now come out that not only were the two men, the McMichaels who killed him, not only were they obviously directly involved, but it's been shown that the third person, the driver of the driver that was filming the shooting, he was actually also, he's been arrested as well for suspected involvement. And it has just come out that part of fibers on his car match the fibers on Ahmaud Arbery's shirt, and it turns out that he had actually run into Ahmaud Arbery in the process of the chase. So that certainly that certainly puts Ahmaud Arbery in the absolute right. So he absolutely was defending himself. So there's no question there that Ahmaud Arbery was defending himself. George Floyd is the victim of a lynching. We all watched an 8-minute and 46-second snuff movie that was created by by people videotaping the Minneapolis police committing murder. It has since come out that Derek Chauvin and George Floyd worked together at a nightclub, and there may have been the officer may have been acting out of a sense of personal hostility towards George Floyd, in which case there's grounds to raise the stakes or raise the charges to first-degree murder. I support that 100%. I want to see Derek Chauvin put away, locked up. He is absolute scum. I also found out today that George Zimmerman signs Skittles bags. I don't know, I don't know how, in what universe you can... I don't know. I feel like if I was George Zimmerman, I would never be able to stop vomiting. But anyway, and I'm on the side of Trayvon Martin. I am on the side of Christian Cooper, the man who made a perfectly reasonable request of a woman in a public park, and she told him that she was going to call the cops and tell them that a black man was after her. In other words, she was hoping that the cops would have some kind of racist retaliation against a black person, and she was using it as a threat. I believe that Amy Cooper is a racist and a piece of shit. I believe that I am on the side of Breonna Taylor. I believe that Breonna Taylor is the victim of this absolutely absurd idea that we have, the no-knock warrant. The no-knock warrant should be done away with. I mean, that's right up there with civil asset forfeiture in terms of things I think should be done away with. So, and regular viewers to my channel will know that I've been blogging about these things. Now we come to Rayshard Brooke. And I am going to make this video, this one video, and then I'm going to take a big old step back from talking about this subject at all, because I cannot get behind you. You please understand, in all of those preceding 4 cases, also Trayvon, which I mentioned, in all of those cases, I am on the side of the victim, and I want to see justice done, and I believe that in most of those cases, if not all of them, they are entirely racially motivated. So, and it's also come out, it's not been proven, but it's come out that the McMichaels may have said fucking N-word when Ahmaud Arbery was shot. So if that's the case, it was definitely racially motivated. In which case, I would take it up to pretty much 100% being racially motivated in all of those previous cases that I mentioned. I am on the side of justice in all of those cases, and I will continue to be on the side of justice in all of those cases after I say what I'm about to say, which is this. Barring some spectacular new evidence that compels me to change my position, I am not on the side of Rayshard Brooke. So he was he was in his vehicle last night, blocking here in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, blocking the drive-through at a Wendy's. and he was asleep in his vehicle, asleep at the wheel because he was intoxicated. The police came. He was, the police came, they removed him from his vehicle, administered the DUI test, he failed it. So they arrested him. Now he's already guilty of loitering and criminal trespass by blocking that, well, I should say potentially criminal trespass, definitely loitering, by blocking that drive-through. He's on private property, he does not have the right to do that. So what does he do? He resists arrest. And this time we have footage that demonstrates that he was resisting arrest, that he assaulted the police officers. He beat up, well, I shouldn't say beat up, but he attacked, he punched two different officers, grabbed for their taser, grabbed for one of the officers' tasers, got the taser, and started to run away. Again, this has all been on video. All video footage has been shown of this. He started to run away. The officers took off in pursuit, which is absolutely the correct course of action when someone is resisting arrest. That is what officers are supposed to do. They followed the rules correctly. They take off in pursuit. He turns around and fires the taser at one of the officers, at which point he got shot to death. There's nothing there that I support on his side. I'm sorry, no. They had a perfectly reasonable reason to approach him. They had a perfectly reasonable reason to arrest him. They put him, they attempted to arrest him, and there is no reason that he cannot go to jail and fight this in court like everybody else who's arrested. But no, he has to resist arrest. He has to fight. And I'm not crazy about the idea of anybody getting arrested. I don't like I'm not a fan of the police. The idea of being arrested, I don't like cops. They make my skin crawl. I'm not like Mr. Pro Cop. I'm not one of these people with a blue line on the back of his car or something, although it might be worth getting because I hear those people never get pulled over. But I don't know what it is that you could possibly rally behind in this issue. They did their job and they did it correctly. And if you assault a police officer, continue assaulting police officer, and fire a weapon at a police officer, even if it is only a taser, you fire a weapon at a police officer, they are justified in shooting you. I mean, I could not, I'm going to include a video, by the way. There's a video of a man who, as I understand, is a police officer explaining all of this. He's not part of the incident. He's a YouTuber that's explaining all of this. But I've watched the video footage, and I don't understand what there could possibly be. And so, of course, what has happened? Now the Wendy's is getting burned down. Some people burned down, some rioters burned down the Wendy's, and an activist has been captured on camera saying that, not captured in the sense of being arrested, what he said was captured by videography. He has been caught or seen on camera telling the camera directly that they're going to continue burning these buildings down because, to use his words, you can rebuild the buildings, we can't get our brothers back. All right. Rayshard Brooke is not in the same category as Ahmaud Arbery. He is not in the same category as George Floyd. He is not in the same category as Breonna Taylor. He is not in the same category as Christian Cooper. At all. And this is something that I've been scared of, is that it's going to get to a point where there is, I've been afraid that there is going to come a point where a totally justified use of physical force is going to be written off as another example of police brutality. This was not police brutality. This was a man who was in the process of breaking the law. He was completely out of control in the course of ordinary police procedure, and he fired a weapon at a police officer. And as the now, I used to be a dispatcher for the police, which is part of the reason I don't trust them, because most of the cops are not a threat. Most of the cops are Barney Fife. But anyway, the you know, but I know a little bit about how this works. And yeah, if you fire anything at a police officer, they will fire back at you. That's just how it works. And it's like, don't shoot don't punch a police officer, take his taser and shoot it at him. I mean, my God. And so now what's happening, what really worries me, though, people are like, well, why do you care about the destruction of the buildings over the destruction of innocent lives? Because what's happening is an act of terror right there, okay? There is nothing noble about what they did. That is an act of terror. And things are completely going down. This is absolute abject insanity. I do not think that it is, unreasonable to start thinking, okay, so we've now decided that it's socially okay to burn down. But first of all, what the fuck did the Wendy's have to do with, I guess, because they called the police? Completely justify. It would have been totally different if they had been fighting with him, or if the Wendy's people had pulled a gun on him. But no, they called the police, which is what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to call the police to come de-escalate a situation like that. And so they burned down the Wendy's, and they burned down the Wendy's, promised more destruction, and we as a society are supposed to be okay with that. We're supposed to just take it in stride and go on. And I don't think it's unreasonable to think that it's only a matter of time before a retaliatory loss of life starts to happen. I mean, if we're already saying that destroying property, public and private property, is an acceptable retaliation, and that it's justified, the circumstances justify it, how much longer before we start justifying acts of killing because of that? We're already at the point in this country where we think it's acceptable to punch people if they're standing on a street corner peacefully expressing an alternative point of view. And yeah, I'm referring to Richard Spencer and the punch a Nazi thing, and you know what? Again, I'll reiterate it. I don't like Richard Spencer. I think he's disgusting. I think he is a real-life Patrick Bateman. I think he's a psychopath. He is a deeply disturbing, deeply disgusting, deeply creepy individual, and I totally relate to your desire to punch him. I do not believe that any person has the right to physically assault someone who is just standing on the street peacefully expressing their point of view, even if it is an abhorrent point of view. Just today, I watched Dave Chappelle's 8-minute 46 seconds special that he did on YouTube, and he says that he wants to kick Candace Owens in her stinky pussy, and he calls Laura Ingraham a cunt. But the idea, like, that's apparently okay now. You don't like Candace. I don't like Candace Owens either. I don't like her points of view. I think she is, for example, I thought when she sat down to debate Blair White, and she began the debate by saying, "I want everyone to know this is a man that I'm talking to," I thought that was extraordinarily rude and completely unnecessary and extremely insulting. I thought she had this thing. She had this very controversial thing she said about about women, unmarried women who and childless women rather, who oppose Donald Trump. She said that childless women who oppose Donald Trump are opposing him because not having a child has driven them crazy. And she used Sarah Silverman as an example. And I know that Sarah Silverman is choosing not to have children because she's horribly, she suffers from horrible depression. She doesn't want to pass it on. That's one of the reasons I'm reluctant to have children. And aside from many, many other reasons. So the point I'm making with that is I get it. I think her points of view are disgusting, or at least very often disgusting. I mean, anybody, if I listen to them enough, they'll eventually say something I agree with. But on the whole, no, I despise Candace Owens. But no, I don't. But apparently it's okay. There's no one calling for a cancel of Dave Chappelle that I'm aware of. And don't get me. And Dave Chappelle's one of my favorite comedians, which is why it's disappointing that he would say that. But he says that he wants to kick her in her smelly pussy, her stinky pussy. Excuse me. And so now it's getting to a point where it's okay. There's a level of implied violence, that it's okay to make violent threats. There's a certain amount of physical assault that's okay, and there's a certain amount of destruction of public property that's supposed to be okay. And it's like, look. You may not like it. You may resent the idea that every single person in this country has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but you don't have the right to interfere with that. Your feelings end where another person's physical well-being begins. And if you think that's oppressive, then you don't know what oppression is, you don't know what freedom is, and you certainly don't understand that rights come with responsibilities. The very idea that we have to accept the destruction of property, the threat of physical violence, and the occasional acting on that physical violence is absurd. No. People need to come out and finally just say what they, more and more they're getting more cavalier, and people are coming out and getting cavalier about it and saying what they actually want, that they actually do want to overthrow the country. I don't want to overthrow this country. This country has been through too much and worked too hard and come too far to give up now. But this is where it is. So I'm going to be turning my attention to other things now, because I feel like we live in it's like there's 5 cases in recent memory: Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Christian Cooper, Breonna Taylor, and now Rayshard Brooke. And you either, you're in one of 2 camps. Either it's 5 for 5 or 0 for 5. You're not allowed to say 4 out of 5, which is where I stand. I support 4 out of 5 of these cases. I support the victims, I should say, in 4 out of 5 of these cases. Hell, I'll even say it. I support the victims in all 5 of these cases because Rayshard Brooke is not the victim here. And don't get me wrong. I do believe that you should have, I believe it was Nietzsche who said, don't have the strength of your convictions, have the strength to change your convictions if better convictions come along. If evidence should come along that truly, genuinely changes my mind about Rayshard Brooke, then I will be right back here to report it. But until that day happens, this is absolute insanity. There is no there is no amount of unjustified killing that justifies what are becoming acts of terror. When you stand there and promise that more of this is going to happen, I'm sorry, those are acts of terror.